Hello. Today I'm talking to Matt Porwoll, an extremely accomplished cinematographer, a dedicated evangelical for vérité documentary filmmaking, and a good friend. Matt was first introduced to most documentary viewers through his work shooting and producing on the Academy Award-nominated Cartel Land, which not only fetched Best Cinematography at both the Cinema Eye Honors and the Primetime Emmys, but also Best Cinematography at the 2015 Sundance Film Festival. After which, Matt continued to lens some of the most eye-catching docs in the industry. Hate Rising, The Trade, Tigerland, Once Upon a Time in Uganda, Catching Lightning, and most recently, The Dynasty, the award-winning doc telling the story of the New England Patriots. Go Birds. All of these projects are renowned for their masterful cinematography, thanks to Matt's incredible eye. In his time between shooting the best-looking docs around and attending award shows, Matt has created a series of incredibly instructive educational YouTube videos for documentary cinematographers of all experience levels. I will, of course, link to his page in the notes. If you're looking for deep dives into difficult-to-learn skills like handheld operating, lighting interviews, or a look at every kind of diffusion out there, it's the place to go. On top of all that, Matt is just a great guy to hang out with and shoot the shit about documentary. I've known Matt for years. When he first started out in the industry, I was lucky enough to have him as a camera assistant, and we immediately bonded over our passion for documentary cinematography. I hope you find this conversation with Matt as illuminating and entertaining as it was for me. That's awkward. I hope you find this conversation with Matt as entertaining and illuminating as I did. My name is Ben Bloodwell. I'm an award-winning cinematographer who's been shooting documentary and doc-style commercials for the last 18 years. You can see my work in all the major film festivals, as well as streamers like HBO, Netflix, Amazon, and now YouTube. I started this channel to share some of the wisdom that I've picked up over the years. My goal with these interviews is to give you the opportunity to sit in on a conversation between two professionals, basically sharing stories and lessons from their careers. I hope you find it helpful. And if you do find it helpful, you may want to subscribe to my channel, as I'm going to be posting more of these conversations and other videos from time to time when I have time between jobs. If you don't see posts for a while, that's really good news, because that means I'm working. And now, without any further self-promotion, here's my conversation with my good friend, Matt Porwoll. I'm an award-winning cinematographer who's been shooting documentary and doc-style commercials for the last 18 years. This is like daily affirmations. Are you good on time? How are you?
Yeah, it's just my grandma keeps calling me.
Oh, shoot.
It's being like, no, it's fine.
Well, tell her to go straight to hell. I guess what I wanted to talk about first was I just did this video about buying gear, about buying equipment, and I liked it a lot. I enjoyed doing it, but I also realized it was like really narrow. Like it was not even in my own take of how to buy gear did it. It didn't even cover everything I think about it, because it's such a big topic, you know. And someone pointed out to me, I think through Facebook, they said they basically pointed out that I didn't show any scenarios where one shouldn't buy gear, which I think it's pretty telling.
That's how we convince ourselves of
exactly.
it.
I mean, it really is. Like, it is very rare. It's kind of like, once I start the conversation with myself, should I buy this thing? It's like, yeah, I'm buying it.
It's already purchased.
It's already purchased. All the rest is justifying it. I mean, there is the odd occasion where I'll look at it and I'll do the math and I'll be like, you know, it just doesn't make sense. But anyway, how do you, when a new piece of equipment comes out, how do you determine whether it's something you should have or shouldn't have?
I mean, same thing. It's like, once the seed's planted, if it's not now, it will probably be at some point. But for me, and I mean, I'm like you, I have way too much stuff. And I also never sell stuff, which is frustrating. So it just keeps accumulating. But then there's always those instances where it's like, oh, I still have that. This is perfect for this job.
Right.
And that's why I never get rid of anything, but that's also why I buy everything. Mm-hmm. And so it's, you know, part of it is an addiction that you shouldn't influence and you shouldn't suggest people to do. But on the other hand, there is something really nice about and an added value to productions to be able to bring what's needed and not have to go out and hire a PA to pick something up at a rental house and transport it and all that stuff. And so for me, I like showing up with my own stuff. So that's a big motivator of what I'm going to buy. But obviously, it also needs to make some money. You know, it needs to pay for itself
Right.
at the very least, if not make more. So that's kind of I think the biggest factor is just, you know, I have a whole spreadsheet of every piece of equipment that I've purchased, what the purchase date was, what the the value at that time was, you know, kind of variables to figure out on average how many days are things being paid off, from lenses to monitors to cameras. And if there's something that I feel like I need for an upcoming shoot, I will factor it into that equation, but that is certainly not the end all be all. And then it's just, will this make my life easier? I think that's another big part of it. And so I don't know. I don't think there's really any clear cut way to decide, but there's some things where I expected it to do a lot better, and either it's just now paying itself off after 7-8 years. Mm-hmm. And there's things that I bought that I thought were going to take, 18 months, and it was done in 4 months.
Right.
Like you don't really know. And I think that's, at the end, they're kind of averaging themselves out. So I don't think you can really look at one piece of gear and say that was a good decision or a bad decision, because it's all a cumulative package that you have.
Right.
So you kind of need to just feel it out and see, is this, I think it goes back to, will this make my life easier?
Right.
And then will I make some money on it? And if the answer is yes, then you're getting your day rate, which is making, you're going to show up whether you have that piece of gear or not. Mm-hmm. But for that day rate, would you like your day to be easier?
Right.
Then it makes sense.
Right.
Would you like to take home more money at the end of the day because you can rent that item? Yes. Either way, it's a win. Mm-hmm. So, I think that's kind of how to factor it in. But then when to stop, that's a whole different conversation.
Oh yeah, we're not the right people to talk to about that. No. We're probably someone out there maybe could start like some kind of service, like an intervention service for people like us to like when to stop. Like, you have enough gear, you have enough equipment. I don't know.
I mean, that's probably what this should become. But what I think what would be interesting is for you to talk to somebody who doesn't own gear.
I know. And
that's always, I have a few friends who don't own anything, and I understand the reasons why, mm-hmm. because then when you own gear, it's like, I am now more motivated to shoot on this camera and this lens, and not try something else out. Whereas you have the complete freedom to do that if you don't own anything. But then you're either the one that's having to go and pick up the gear all the time, you're having to rent stuff from your friends. It becomes logistically complicated. Yeah. And I would be curious from them now, having done it for many years, like, is it worth it? I don't know. But it's also, it's the same problem of when you get a job and the production company owns gear and they want you to use their gear.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have anything to do with, certainly having to pick up the equipment is a pain. Right. But like, what makes my camera work for me is not the camera. It's all the little pieces that I've accumulated over time. Mm-hmm. And I've done videos about that, of like, the image quality across the board is fine. It's just ergonomics to me is the most important decision in making that purchase. But if I go to a rental house and get it, it's like, am I having to explain to them every time, I want this shoulder pad and this kind of hand grip and all this stuff? And then if they don't have it, it's like, just buy it. And then when you start buying the accessories but not the camera, then it's
that's like, really dumb. Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah. No, I've definitely been in that. I mean, the production companies owning the gear is really interesting. Like, that is something, it's hard not to get a little annoyed. And like you said, it's not even about like, of course, I want that income, of course. Like, it's like sound mixer. I always think about sound mixers, because sound mixers, basically the business model of being a sound mixer is owning the equipment. Like, every time a production company is like, oh, we own the sound gear, we're just bringing, I'm like, oh, that's not cool. Like, because it's the extreme example of what we're talking about, because they have really dialed in every little piece, but also because of years and years. Different. It's right. It's not really, you're right. But I mean, I also think you just like, rates are built around, for sound mixers, if you want a really good sound mixer and you're paying their rate minus their gear, they're probably not going to be too interested, right? Because they've built their entire business model around that. It's not like, sometimes I work with my gear, sometimes I don't. Whereas us, like, in theory, like, someone could come to me and say like, oh, we have the gear or whatever, But the rate's good. And it's like, all right, let's do it. It's fine.
Right. And on those
yeah.
days, like, it is actually kind of nice to show up without
Yeah. Oh my God. Oh my God. Especially travel stuff, which is a whole nother. At some point, I will talk to you about flying with gear. I think that's a whole thing. But we'll talk about that some other time. But I think like once you've flown with like 20 cases of gear, especially like I live in Philadelphia. And when I fly out, everyone's meeting me from a different city. So I try not to make a big deal of it to production.
Doing it by yourself.
So it's just me. I don't like to be like, I need to have an AC or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, I'll do it. And then it's like, oh, every time. And then you get a job that's like, we just need you. We have the gear. And you're like, oh, that sucks. But secretly in the back of your mind, you're just imagining yourself strolling through the airport, like taking an Uber, right when you get off the plane, taking an Uber to the hotel. And
just grabbing dinner.
Exactly, grabbing dinner, not having to like throw batteries on charge at night because the AC has all the gear. They're doing it all, That is,
but then
huge.
It's always in the back of your mind. You're like,
yeah. But are they going to have?
That's like half the rate. Like I'm losing out on half my income.
Half the income, and then also like the endless phone calls. Being a relatively neurotic DP, like I'm constantly harassing the AC about like, are you sure they have this? Are you sure they have? Because, for a very long time, my whole thing was I come from like a long line of accountants in my family. So like I always thought of buying gear as like a fund. Like, oh, if I like put a certain amount of money in a fund and I would sit and calculate out the return on the fund and I try to compare it to like and it always like on paper through my own spreadsheet magic, it always comes out like much more profitable than if I just put my money in like a Dow Jones whatever, or, a lot of investments that happen. Like, you're just like, oh yeah, this is great. And then I slowly realized that it's just not like, that's just not what is going on here. Like, we're buying tools for the thing we do. And at the end, the amount of money you make every year is either enough or it isn't. It is kind of interesting. I don't know. I've stopped thinking of it that way. Cause then what started to happen is I started looking at things like, I don't know if you've run the numbers on how much a battery makes. Like the return on investment on batteries is amazing. Or like media. And it's like, yeah, but that's not how it works. Like, you're not just going to sit and buy,
No, because you're also not line item renting those things either.
Right. Well, that's my other question is that how do you roughly, I know it's different for every job, but like in an ideal world, do you talk to your client about like, okay, I'm going to send you a list of everything and I'm going to itemize it and we'll have a total? Or do you just say like, let's just say it's this much for the package?
I itemize to a point. So I will have, it's like my camera package is a certain price, and that comes with, I will also throw out the caveat, and I don't know if I should say this, and we'll probably delete this later, but like you're always throwing in additional stuff based on what the job needs with the same rate.
Right.
But generally speaking, it's like the camera package is one rate. That's the camera, the tripod, all the batteries, all the media, filters if they're needed, onboard monitors, and then lenses. And at this point, I now only own either a set of primes or cine zooms, and so it includes one of the other. If you want both, then I would separately add the set of primes, because I feel like there's kind of compartments of the types of jobs you're doing. If I'm doing a vérité film, then it's generally just going to be the camera and the lenses. You're not bringing a whole bunch of extra monitors, lighting, all that kind of stuff. So I'll have a camera package rate per camera, and then I'll have a separate lens rate if those are additional. I do itemize my monitors because I do feel like it's so different of, do I need a bunch of client monitors or can I get away with just one? So I do line item those out, and then I just have a kit price for my lighting package. It's generally grouped, but I still do have individual prices for everything.
Right.
And most of that is if I'm renting it out to somebody else, not if I'm coming with it.
Right.
But, I do have what those prices are. I just have to reference them all the time because I never use them.
Right. Yeah, that's the problem. The thing I hate, you probably are in this situation all the time as well. Is like when they first call you for a job and you get really excited about it, and then they want to know right away, well, how much will you and your camera be? I'm always like, I need a minute.
But I'm like, what do you need?
Yeah. I need to think about, right. What do you need? I probably could come up with some rough numbers, but I also just don't keep them in my head. I mean, I probably should more, but like, now everything changes so quickly too, even just rates and things. It's like, I just need a minute. I want to find out more about your project first. And then let's talk about like what we need for the job and then what it'll cost and all that. And I don't know.
I also, there's a mentality that I think ultimately pays off. And sometimes you lose jobs because of it, but sometimes you just get the ones that you should have, which is if a producer calls and is asking you, what's your rate with gear? Before they tell you what the project is, what the expectations are, what kind of gear is needed, this is purely a financial transaction.
Right.
You are not being brought in to have add anything to the film,
right,
other than sticking a camera on your shoulder or on sticks.
Right.
I'm not going to say those jobs aren't great to have every once in a while, because we all need to get paid, but that's not my first choice.
Right.
So if that's what they first come out of the gate with, then I like to just counter with, I can get you that number, but let's talk about what the project is, and I will get you a number that fits what it is that you're looking for.
Right.
Sometimes giving them the impression that maybe it's cheaper or maybe it's more expensive, but what I don't want to do is lock them in and say, oh, the rate is X for me and gear.
Right.
Or me and a camera. Because
right.
then that's the number they have in mind, and they're like, oh, great, so here's what we need. And you're like, why didn't you lead with that? Because now it's going to be so much more money.
Yeah.
But then you can't really change it after the fact.
Right.
Or it
you
gives
have
them
to.
a bad taste
right.
about you. So I'm like, I hear you. Let's just talk about what it is and what you need, and I'll get you that number,
And you're right. It is a good, the people who aren't willing to have that conversation with you, it's probably an indication. I think neither you or I are really excited about getting on a job that's just about us showing up with a camera and documenting what they want.
It's a mentality that goes with just anything about rates, is I feel like if you just come right out of the gate and just say it,
right,
then A, they're locking you into it. B, you're removing the conversation around what's required. Because sometimes it's like, I can tell you my rate, and if I come right out of the gate with it, if it's too high for what they would think, I'm open to talking about bringing it down.
Right.
Like, I'm not against
right.
that. But if I just kill them out of the gate, then they're never going to call me back again because it's too high and they don't think they can negotiate. The same goes for gear. And it's like, if you just take a beat and then hear everything and then send it after the fact, it leaves so much more room open for negotiation and communication, but also just understanding of where this is coming from.
Right. Yeah. Is there particular gear you won't buy? Is there any gear you wouldn't buy, Matt Porwoll? You've got a good lighting kit. You've got the cameras, monitors. I just recently bought the comms. That's something I never thought I would buy. I was like, it seems like people are having them, and it's valuable to have on the set. And that's the perfect example. Like, most jobs I bring those on, I'm not charging them for those. It's just like I bring them
just
along.
makes your life easier.
Yeah. Unless it's something like the job requires this and we're renting it from somewhere else, I might be like, oh, we'll just rent it from me.
Right.
I don't
know. It's also hard to answer this question with my wife sitting over there, because is there anything that I won't buy? She's laughing.
You haven't bought the grip truck yet. You haven't gotten the 2-ton.
That's crossing the line. No, I'm not buying a truck. I would buy a camera van, but I wouldn't buy a grip truck.
Oh, don't do it, man.
I know. I think about you every time that I consider that opportunity.
The day I lost that van, man, that was like the best day of my life. I love that van to death, but it's an enabler when you have that huge van. It's like having a lot of space in your house or in your storage space. You're going to fill it up with equipment. Sometimes you need to have limitations imposed on you.
I think where I would, I'm not interested in buying really incredibly expensive lenses. As great as it would be, it just, for the kind of work that I do, I'm not going to pay them off. Especially now. God, there were days thinking back of like when we were at Able and they were just effectively throwing away Zeiss super speeds because
Right.
Nobody was using
Nobody won.
35 millimeter
Yep.
lenses. It's
Yep.
like, oh man, should have picked those up then. But,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm not going down that road.
Wait, when you left Able, you didn't take I took a bunch of Zeiss lenses. I just was like, last day on the job, I just took the little cardboard box, I
swept 'em in.
put a few, I just put my pencil holder on top of them.
They'll never know.
They'll never know. Pete and Rich aren't going to watch this. It's fine. Yeah, expensive lenses, I agree.
Expensive lenses. And then like there's a tier of lighting that I'm not interested in. I mean, I would love to have them, but again, it's like, that's one of those things that I'm always tempted to buy more lights. But then I also realize, well, then it means to use those, I'm going to need a gaffer and at least a grip or two. And it's like, then why not just have them bring the gear?
Right.
And the lighting stuff doesn't rent for as much as I would like it to be able to pay it off.
Right.
So it's like, I've got the kit that can get most things done and I can roll up in my car with it. But beyond that.
Right. That's where I draw the line on lighting. I'm like, well, if this is something, because I'm using this piece of equipment, I need to hire oh, we have to have a gaffer if I have an 18K shooting through the window. We're going to need a generator. I'm not buying an 18K, but I mean, there's things closer to my world that I still wouldn't do. But I'm like, I have the amount of equipment that I could do with the help of a camera assistant or, a good small crew. But if it requires a gaffer, then I'm not buying it in theory.
Right. I will say the one thing that I didn't think that I would invest any more in that I did a little bit is sound.
Yeah.
Just because I think, it's funny. I feel like I was having to do sound myself more and more earlier on, and hasn't been as much of a thing. But when it does become one, it's like I actually want it to be more functional,
right?
As opposed to just running everything into the camera, which is a pain. It's like I now have a mixer that I can wear, on my belt,
right? Oh wow,
more lavs, able to send hops and that kind of stuff. But that's one of those things too that it's like nobody cares that I have it. It's just making my life easier,
right. And it's not, and you're probably not itemizing that mixer on your invoice. You're probably saying my sound kit, or no?
My sound kit. Yeah, exactly. However many lavs you need, if I own them, I will bring them as part of that kit.
That's the perfect, man, you segued me so well. It's like we scripted this, because the other thing I wanted to talk about was like crew size and I think this has changed a lot for me. Like I used to have so many red lines. I'd be like, well, I'm not working. And for a long time, pre-COVID, it was, I won't work without I need a sound mixer. Unless there's like a compelling reason. Like for many years, I shot Intervention, which I loved. That project was like dear to my heart. I love it. It was great documentary filmmaking. And we were just running around and jumping into cars with, addicts and things like that. And it just made sense. It's like, yeah, you can't, having a sound mixer in the field like that, and was also sort of to promote the vision that this isn't we were trying to obviously not let the addicts know what we're doing. That's a whole part of the show. So having somebody as unprofessional as me trying to mic you up probably helped with that. But then since then, I used to draw the line, because there's certain companies that started making the model of like shooting high-end documentary where it's like, well, we'll hire like multiple DPs, but we won't hire a sound mixer. And I just started to get, not only because I have a lot of friends who are really good sound mixers, but also just it becomes a bandwidth issue for me a little bit. And then like just not being like, I want to focus on the image as much as possible. And like, if I'm also like really listening for the rustling of a microphone, that's, I can't do everything.
What can a sound person do? They can jump in and actually fix the mic while I'm shooting something else, or I can just frame them out and
exactly
keep the cycle going.
That's the biggest thing for me is it's just like it's a person power, how many people you need to get a job done. It's just at a certain point, like, well, yeah, exactly. It becomes very inefficient just because there's a person who does the job. I mean, I remember I was working with one of these companies that did this. It was a great job, traveled all over the place, 2 DPs, which is great because you don't get to hang out with DPs a lot. So it was nice. I was like, oh, all right. And we were shooting in a situation, we had the typical, like we had a lav going into each camera and then a shotgun on the camera. So it worked fine, we were most of the time. And then suddenly like a third person came onto the scene or something. Or actually, I think because we had already compromised down to having like only lavs on all the cameras. And then a fifth person came in or something. And the producer started like panicking and being like, well, what do we like? How are we going to get audio? And we're like, we can't wire them. We just
bring a sound person.
And I know, and it was very hard. I always tell it, sorry, because it's like, it was a very nice, like I said, the production was very nice. They were very cool, but it was very hard not to be snarky in that situation when they asked like, well, how do you handle this normally when this happens? And be like, well, I don't usually handle this, but we'll figure it out. And we figured it. We ended up getting like a smaller C camera and using it as a mixer but again, of course, it cost us hours. But anyway, my whole point being, that was my red line for a while, and now I feel like the things have changed a lot. First, a lot of the technology has changed, which helps a lot. It is a lot more, I can do it. I can actually grab a sound kit and probably do it, and there's enough wiggle room and levels, and I'm recording right now on one of these little Rode lav mics that I just put on, and it records itself, and and also transmits to the camera. It's pretty low maintenance. So I always am like, in theory, yes, we have the technology to do and all that, but I always sort of have the caveat. I don't know about you, but my caveat is always like, it's almost like an insurance policy, or like, if we have the right people to do the job on the crew, including a sound mixer in this case, like you're moving closer to me being able to guarantee you getting exactly what you want. Whereas if you have me doing sound and doing camera, it's probably going to be fine. Like, I'm capable of doing it. I'm very good at my job, but you're moving slightly further away from that guarantee, which I think that's like a big dynamic, like depending on your budget, like how much are you willing to pay for having that guarantee versus rolling the dice a little bit,
And also, like, why did you call me? Because I would assume that you called me because you've seen work that I've done.
Right.
If you've heard work that I've done, that's probably not great. That's why you're calling me.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you want me to deliver what you've previously seen, then that's part of the insurance policy.
Yeah, right. So where do you draw the lines with like sound, for instance? Is that I know that, and I will say, this is dangerous territory for us as DPs, because it's like, we don't want to say, well, I'll do it without sound, or, any lines are,
No,
I don't know.
I'm
It's
very
tough,
clear about it. And I've done videos on doing your own sound, lav techniques, all those kind of things, but every single one of them, same with producers, is it always comes with that asterisk at the beginning, which is why. Is there a reason for the story? If it's a budgetary reason, I'm not interested, honestly, because it's going back to your insurance policy. Like, if your budget is lower, then that's already making it harder for me to do what I need to do, to then add something else on top of it. But if there's a reason for the story, then I am all in. And it's the same. I mean, Intervention does not make sense to have a sound recordist running through. Cartel Land did not make sense to have a sound recordist running through. But in those situations when it did, we brought one,
Right.
I feel so bad for trekking Peter Miller through the mountains in Arizona, but we needed somebody.
Oh, he loved it.
He did it. He did love it. The trade did not make sense to have. I mean, it's exactly the same as Intervention. It was just a producer and a cinematographer.
Right.
But there was a reason for it, so it made sense. But the other thing is, first question is why for the story. Second question is, yes, but I am telling you right now what the compromise is, which is there are going to be situations that we will not capture perfectly. Right. And reminding everybody that sound is far more important than picture in documentaries. So if you're letting that slide,
say that,
you better be okay with it.
You're not supposed to say that part out loud.
I know. It makes us feel more humble, we're like, but
it is 100% true. It's 100%. I always say, like, the sound, having bad sound is far worse than having bad cinematography in a documentary. It's so much more forgivable to have bad cinematography. This is a little bit of a tangent, but it does go to this thing. Like, I never try to say, I think you and I have talked about this before. Like, I never want to be like a Dr. No, I call it, on a job where someone's like, we don't have a sound mixer for this, especially once you're on the job. you never want to be like, well, we can't do that then. I'm not doing that. Because I don't know if you've ever I've had crew members who I turn to and be like, we have to do this. And they say, we can't do it. And they just look at you with this like blank face. And there's nothing that kills
There's always
creativity.
a way to do it.
It's like, don't tell me there's not a way to do it. Tell me it's going to cost me $10 million, you know, and then I can go to the producer with that and be like, we have a solution, you know? And I feel the same way about like with the sound. It's exactly what you said, is that the idea, I would never say like, we can't do it. I can't do sound. I can do sound. This is what that will mean. Like paint them a picture, because there's obviously a good reason we usually have sound mixers. It's not just like, I mean, they're not that enjoyable to be around, frankly. So, you know, there's a reason we usually have them. So it's it's always a good, I think it's good to like sort of paint them that picture of like, well, this is what it's going to look like. Here's the possibility, like the risk we're taking. And I'm not saying like that I'm not saying I'm really bad at it, I can't do it or whatever, but there is that risk. And I'm not saying, you know, I'm not washing my hands of that or anything, you know, because that's a fine line too. You don't want to be like, I don't know. Like I know some directors of photography, not really in the documentary world, but who won't pull focus, for instance. Mm-hmm. I think that's less and less nowadays. But I was always shocked when I worked with somebody to be like, I just don't pull focus. And I'm like, you never pull your own focus? Because sometimes it's better.
I never don't pull
focus. Yeah, every once in a while, it suddenly occurs to me that I have a crew member on the set that probably knows how to pull focus. And that I have a wireless focus device.
But what's funny is every time that I then ask them to do it, I'm like, I can do it better.
Yeah, right. Unless that's a feature film versus, I mean, when I operate on a feature, every once in a while I'll operate on a feature and I'll have a great like focus puller. And to me, I'm in awe of them. Like, cause you're just like, because I still stay in sort of documentary mode a lot of the times where I'm like, I'm going to go look at this now. I'm going to go do this. And the boop, boop, boop. It's amazing. A good focus puller. Oof. So different than when I did it.
On the crew thing, I think that's also a great segue into ACs because, you know, I think it's been, for me, I almost never have one or get one.
Really?
I should say.
ACs?
It's very difficult. ACs.
Interesting.
What the caveat I will say is that oftentimes people will ask, like, do you need one?
Right.
And there's that hint of, we don't really want somebody, but are you one of those DPs that require it? Because there's lots of those that are out there. And, you know, I think part of it too is every time that I bring somebody on, it's not like it was when we were assisting, that I work with somebody.
Right.
And then the next time I get to have another AC, I call them back and now they're shooting.
Right.
Like nobody stays in long enough for me to have a rapport. Mm-hmm. And having come from the assisting background, like just like with sound, like I know how to do this.
Right.
And sometimes it's easier for me to do it than to take the time to walk somebody else through it.
Right.
Because doc ACing is not your typical ACing. It's like you're managing gear organization, you're charging batteries and media. And like, since all the gear is mine, I know how it was packed. I know what I have. They never get to go through it. So like, am I going to sit there and spend an hour walking you through all my cases, or am I just going to walk over there and get it?
Right.
So like, you know, that's tricky. But the other thing that I would say that makes this current situation harder of everybody is moving up so fast, you don't get them all the time, but you also don't get to have the same person on an entire project.
Right.
Which is where we came from.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I learned everything that I'm doing now is because I assisted the entire film with the same DP and the same sound mixer. Yeah. So I learned story, I learned vérité techniques that way, and I wasn't just a gear organizer. Right. But now it's like the thought of flying an AC with us is impossible. And, you know, and I mean, I was on a job recently where we were in San Francisco and I said, or no, we were in New Orleans. And I said, this is why flying an AC makes sense, because I had an AC in New Orleans. But guess what? It's all my gear. So I'm now taking all of it to the airport by myself. I'm unloading it all once we land. I'm taking it all to my hotel room to build the cameras, to charge the batteries, because the AC is local. They're not staying at the hotel. They're at home. Right. So now they just show up in the morning to like load it into the van. And I'm like, I did all the work.
Yeah. And you don't want to sit you don't want to have this AC in your room when you've just did this long flight going through all the equipment. You're like, I'm just going to do it. 100%.
But then it comes back and they're like, why is your overtime so high? And I'm like, because I'm literally working 18 hours a day to get up before call to prep everything. Staying afterwards to charge and rebuild for the next day. Like, if you take that money that you're paying in my overtime, which at that point I'm not excited to get because I would much rather sleep and eat dinner. Translate that into a hotel room at the very least for a local AC, or just fly somebody. Like, it's not, you're adding $300. Like, what's the big deal? So that's the kind of stuff that when we would just travel with them, it was all built in. We were a unit that we all had time to manage ourselves, and that you just don't get that anymore.
I mean, I'm a bit older than you are. So I remember when I was a camera assistant in documentaries, it was a team. Like, we traveled like a band. There was me, the director, the DP, usually Marie's, who I was like very lucky to just be able to, I basically assisted with her on every project she did. And it wasn't even negotiable. It was just like, oh no, we're bringing Ben, obviously. And then we'd have like David Hawks or Brenda Ray, or, we'd fly with them. That was the package. We'd all fly together. And it was not only it's great on like a personal level because you make really great friends, but also like a consistency. Like, you just don't have to explain what we're doing here, what's going on. This little, don't bring that up around that subject. I forgot. Like, the
language is there.
It's all there. I mean, that is the past, and that is important. I mean, it's interesting to hear you say, again, one of my red lines used to be the AC. I'd be like, I need an AC now. I basically had said, okay, now from now on, I need an AC, because I'd really gotten used to it. I think I did a lot of documentary TV is pretty like AC heavy. In fact, they usually have like, I forget, the first time I worked with like a tech, what do they call it? They had a role that was just basically the tech guy who like sat in the room and didn't even come into the field with us, which I was baffled by. He just sat, and when we returned the gear, he'd go through everything. I was like, what? That's an AC, but Why? He's just not coming into the field. Anyway, we ended up turning him into an AC, but it was great because you end up learning this rhythm of working where you can rely on an AC, especially for things like lens changes, things like that. But I do think it has become, they often are like, do you need an AC? And it has become a little bit of like, well, I don't. Like, I'm very good at being an AC. I was a very good AC. I can do this stuff. And like, is it a luxury or is it necessary? I'm a little bit on the fence about it. And I think it does. I think you have to look at it job by job. How complicated is it? Are we shooting on zooms or primes, which is something I do want to touch on at some point with you. And I don't know. One of the things that I think is interesting is sort of the rise of the operator AC. That's the thing that I think has changed a lot. Because what often happens now is we don't have an AC, but we do have a budget for an operator. And I was like, well, great. So that operator is going to be an operator / AC. And that makes a lot of sense. Because the other part that I always kind of bemoan is not just that I don't get an AC, but we're also not teaching, people aren't learning stuff in the field. Like you and I learned a lot of stuff by watching other people work. So the operator AC kind of starts to take that role. I mean, this is a good question, is like, because this is something that's come up for me a few times where they hire an AC and suddenly that AC is out shooting B-roll. And you're like, Like, how do you draw those lines as far as like, well, what point is that? Like, even just for like screen credit, and in an ideal world, rate changes a little bit if you're an AC who's actually operating now. And then let alone if they go out and shoot like a scene, which in the documentary world could suddenly happen. Like, oh my God, you're over there. We need someone to capture that thing that's happening. Pick up a camera and get it, which is fine. I'll never say like, don't shoot it.
Right. But yeah. Well,
another tricky territory.
Another tricky thing, because what I will say, and I think we do slightly different things. Like, I don't do a lot of TV stuff.
Right.
But what I will say is that I think that the mentality from that world is shifting over, where for me, I am pretty adamant that unless there's a real need for it, I do not like two cameras shooting at the same time.
Sure.
I think, there's a dance involved. And if it's somebody who is not on the film the entire time.
Right.
That's where it's a different story.
Right.
Very different situation. But if it's just a hired in day player who's coming in to be a second camera, it changes the dynamic of everything. And so I don't like to have two cameras playing. I also
Are you talking about vérité here, or is that you're like in a vérité scene?
I'm talking about vérité.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I mean,
yeah,
interviews, I kind of wish you could go back to the days of single camera interviews.
Right, yeah, but that's not happening.
It's never going to happen. But no, I think that there's a lot of things, and again, I'm never going to say no to it, but there's something about the just quantity over quality that's taken over a lot.
100%.
And I like to try to refocus that as much as possible, whether we're talking about sound, to have a recordist or not. Both are viable as long as there's a reason for it. To have two cameras or not to have two cameras, there's a reason for it. But what I don't want to do is let's just spray stuff down. And that ends up happening when you have an assistant who is also an operator, or their kind of contract is negotiated around that, where we'll just have another camera laying around just in case.
Right.
And I'm like, the just in case means you're going to use it.
You're going to use it all the time. Yeah.
It's like, why? Because then when it comes to if the director or producer just sends them out to shoot B-roll, and that's a whole nother conversation for us to talk about is B-roll, are they just grabbing stuff for the sake of grabbing stuff, or is there a motivation behind it?
Right.
B-roll, everybody says B-roll is not B-roll, it's A-roll, which is true. It's like, what's the intention behind how it's being photographed?
Right.
And have we had the ability to talk about that before you just send them out and do it?
Right.
And all of it, if it's just like, if you're going to treat every other aspect of this film of just anybody can go out and grab it. And I'm not saying that these operators and assistants aren't good at what they do.
Right.
They're just, we haven't had the creative conversations.
Right.
Then it's like, then why am I here? Like, why not just have somebody else be shooting this? And, I'm not trying to say that like we are above a certain level, but
we definitely are, Matt.
We are. But no, but I think I do think that everyone should have that motivation from the beginning, because it's always going to fall apart to the end. But to approach a project with creative integrity and purpose. Right. But when you start it with these kinds of things of what's your gear rate without telling what the project is. Right. I'm telling you right now, we're not having a sound mixer, and you don't get an assistant. I'm like, you're putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
We talk about all of these things as to why.
Right. Get a holistic vision of the project. And then it might make
once
sense.
I have that vision, I will happily start shaving stuff off left and right.
Right. But sometimes they make it sound like it's just we're ticking off the things. We're just, like they're going through their budget with you and just telling you like, no. It's interesting.
But that's another thing. I would love to go through the budget with people.
Oh my God. Don't even get me started on that.
So you're not willing to put money towards this, but you're spending how much money on that?
Like,
I don't need boutique hotels. In fact, I tell productions all the time, I like the Marriott and the Hilton because it's predictable. Yeah. And I know my card will fit in the elevator.
The load-ins are easy. Nobody's going to like try to get a tip from me as I try to enter
For sure.
No, the more luxurious. I have a whole theory about that. Like the term luxury just means inconvenient in hotels. Like that's all it means.
Right.
Every aspect of it, they make it difficult to load in. They make it difficult to, get your car in the morning.
A fat stack of petty cash.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny. No, So the budget thing is an interest. That might be a whole other thing. Cause I went down that road for a while where I was like, I'm going to learn how you budget a documentary, and I'm going to try. And I realized it just doesn't, it's a fool's errand. And probably if they actually trusted me with that stuff, I would not want to do it. I don't want to have that responsibility of knowing the whole, because I used to be like, well, tell me the whole, but like, tell me what do you have in your budget lines for everything camera and lighting? Because if you say like, we can't use this lens or these lenses, but then later you have budgeted like a jib arm, and I know we're not going to need that. Like maybe we can, maybe I know where we can put the money, and they're very suspicious. This is especially television. Documentary television, they just don't trust you at all.
That's like the fiction world's thing.
Yeah, their model is this is a $10 million film. Yeah.
And we trade the money. You can't have this, but you can get this if you lose that.
I know. Yeah,
I would do the same thing.
Exactly, and I think in documentary, what I've sort of come down to is they're not ever going to tell you. Sometimes they will if you know the showrunners well enough or the producers. They'll be like, well, it's a X, it's $1 million per episode or whatever. But really, that also just doesn't mean as much as it does in the fiction world, because there might be so many other different things. So you can say, oh, if it's $1 million per episode, I know I can use this. I'll use my $1 million per episode, list of things I want. That doesn't really work that way. But I'm constantly trying to figure out, without trying to sound like, because it gets misconstrued as being like, how much of this money can I get? And it's like, no, I want to figure out what I can ask for this project, and what's totally crazy for me to ask for, because I don't want to waste both our time saying we have to shoot this on Alexa 35 with anamorphics. Like, if it's, FX3 with, cheap lenses, and that's fine too. But like, I don't want to end up shooting on FX3 with cheap lenses if it could have been an Alexa 35 with anamorphics, because I found myself in that situation a few times where I'm like, I've worked out this whole package and done all these deals and everything, and then you show up on set and there's a there's a video village all of a sudden, and then there's like clients who have been flown in from LA, and you're like, well, wait a minute, and they're like, oh, why didn't you? And then they start looking at me like, well, why do you have this camera and not the other camera? Like, why,
Right.
You feel like,
or the flip side where and this is where it goes back to like quantity over quality, is you have all these conversations where it's like, oh no, like we really want to shoot this on Alexa 35 with, anamorphic. And then you show up and they're like, oh, well, the assistant can just pick up another camera and shoot something.
Right.
And they're like,
yeah,
we don't have another Alexa.
Right.
They're like, oh no, they'll just use like an FX3 and shoot it. I'm like, then why are we shooting the A cam on
right.
this other thing?
Like,
like,
that's not gonna, that's,
like if it doesn't matter, then let's just reduce all of our expectations. But if it does matter, then let's put the money on the screen,
right,
and not just spend it frivolously on other things.
If this is going to be a beautiful looking documentary, let's not do anything
that's keep it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. On the crew thing, it's interesting though, because I find more and more on both features and television, the only way I often will get a camera assistant is that they are able to operate. And that's where I start drawing the lines. I'll be like, and first of all, I know a few ACs who are really good operators that I can trust. So I'll be like, that person, can do this. And I also find it very important to be like, well, on an interview, if the angles are not in a place where I can be watching both and, especially with focus and stuff, it starts to become like, okay, we should have someone else operate the camera and I'll operate this camera. Especially if it's sort of the profile-y look or something like that. I have the AC look and sit and operate the camera. And it's like, that's still an AC to me, which is very different. Right. Yeah. I mean, it's not how it used to be. That's an AC. Yeah. Now, if we shoot a scene and they're like, well, we need someone on a tripod, covering this conversation, you're going to be over here, and we just need them to be locked on this person talking. I'm like, well, that's an operator now.
That's an operator.
That person's making decisions based on my instructions. They're not doing any lighting or anything like that, but they're operating. And then if they say they got to go out and shoot a scene, I'm like, well, you have an additional cinematography situation here. and really, I hate to say, but we have to look at the real. You have to, and there's some people that I'd be like, you
were not hired for that job.
And I have a great crew. That's one of the great things I loved about We're Here, is that we had a whole crew of people in the camera department that I was like, oh, I got COVID, shoot, but Justin can step in and I know he can do it. And I'm not going to lose sleep over it. And he'll have to, I'll have to be talking him through the things and everything like this, but he's capable of doing it because I've seen his work. And, but it is interesting, like this.
But that's where like you make those decisions. I mean, I think about like Hate Rising.
Yeah.
It's like it was you, me, and Jerry.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, well, at that point, nobody's thinking of anybody as like the cinematographer on this film. It's like it's just three people shooting this movie.
Right.
And you can trade each other out, and it's a lot more fluid that way because the decision was made of who those people were going to be, as opposed to just like
whoever happened to be the AC that day.
Let me just elevate you in this moment.
Right.
It's like, no. Let's have somebody that's good and capable and able to think for themselves. And again, all of this to say that most I shouldn't say most actually, but a lot of assistants are very good at doing this and can think for themselves. But that's not why we called. But
they're also, I mean, I have to say on the other side of that, when I was an AC, I hated the moment. They'd always be like, this is a great opportunity for you. Because I'd be like loading magazines because that's how old I am. Right. And I'd be, I'd be like pulling focus. And then they'd be like, oh, here's your great opportunity. You get to operate. And suddenly I'd have a camera in my hands. And I was like, you know what? When I woke up this morning, I have prepared everything in my brain and organized it to take care of this DP the best I can on every level. And now I'm having to make the creative decisions about framing and stuff like that. And I hated it. It was not like, it's not what I wanted to do that day. Like, if you hire me as an operator, love it. That's great. And I'll also help you out. But it's that mental thing of like, I don't know. I just feel like you're either assisting
I don't
or you're
think
operating to a degree.
They think about the amount of weight that you're putting on that person.
Yeah, yeah. As you're shooting, you're thinking about, are those batteries charging? How many mags do I have loaded right now? And I'm operating a camera, things like that.
And if they're worth their salt, they would. Yeah. There's no chance that if they're going to send the assistant out to shoot something, they're not sitting down with the director beforehand, like we have the opportunity to do, to say, what are we trying to get out of the scene?
Look?
Like, we have that crutch of the director explaining it to us.
Absolutely.
They don't get it. They're just gonna be like, just go capture it. And then I'd be sitting there being like, is the director even gonna like this? Like, why am I here?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
And that's not good for them.
No, nobody's happy in that situation.
But on the flip side, it is funny because like I think that's a big part of how I shot Cartel Land, is because I was Wolfgang's assistant.
Oh, absolutely.
On Escape Fire, Heinemann's first film, and I ended up doing a lot of those B-roll, time-lapsey things.
Right.
Sometimes Matt would tell me what he wanted. Most of the time, not.
Right.
And so it's either I can totally screw it up and literally never work with him again.
Right.
Or I can get a sense of what he wants and then get it done and then be called to do something else because I'm a lot cheaper than Wolf. On the next project. And so, but there are those moments that it certainly can be an opportunity. It's just like,
right. But on the crew thing, so what is your perfect size crew? I mean, I know like after everything we've just been talking about, but let's say you're shooting a basic documentary that involves some vérité and some interviews. It's 2 cameras because everything is at least 2 cameras now. Let's say you don't necessarily have a gimbal. It's just, oh yeah, we're gonna drive around. We've got like 3 or 4 locations we might do in a day. Like what size crew, if it was less than a certain amount, would you be like, you know what I mean? Or like what would that crew look like to you if someone were to ask you what they need?
I mean, I think the goal is you've got director, DP, sound, AC, assuming that it's, because I feel like the AC can sometimes it's either an AC or a PA.
Right.
Even, I mean, a PA to me is fine because it's just someone to help move stuff.
Right.
But I think also a dedicated PA. I feel like that's the crew. So director, DP, sound, AC, PA.
Yeah. People often forget about the PAs. I feel like I've often shown up on jobs where I've been very specific about like, I think we need this, and then there's no PAs, and I was like, oh. Yeah, someone has to drive the cars. Like I'm happy to drive. I don't know. I like driving personally, but there's a lot of situations where I'm driving with the subject, and like suddenly we don't have enough drivers, which is the dumbest thing. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Not enough drivers and too many cars.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's always multiple. And we've had that conversation. That's another one. It's just the vehicles. Like, big fan of minivans. Don't get SUVs unless you're like driving up mountains or something. I don't know.
Even then, we were minivan exclusively on Cartel Land.
Yeah.
We destroyed them.
Yeah.
But we did some serious off-roading in a Dodge Caravan.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it's such a flexible it's like it was designed for documentary production. You can get the equipment in there. It's not high up, so you can load in and out relatively easily. It's got all the doors. And then you can also use it as a moving platform to shoot from, which is very, and then they give you an SUV or something and you're like, shoot out the window. You're trying to cram the camera through the window or something. It's like, if we had an SUV or if you had a minivan,
just open the door.
Yeah, exactly. We've had the conversation about B-roll, and I think you feel the same way I do. I get a lot of anxiety around B-roll because it's one of those things that there's not necessarily any direction behind it sometimes, and that drives me nuts because I love shooting vérité. It's my favorite thing. And that's like, I know what's like part of my job is to figure out what's happening here in this room and what's about to happen and be ready for it and to react. And then at the end of a vérité scene, you're like, we've got this thing that happened and I know we got it. Or on the, occasion, I don't know if we got it, but with B-roll, it's like, do we have it? Like, we need B-roll of Philadelphia. Like, great. Is that skylines? Is it, do you need someone, rowing on the Schuylkill? Like what, and often they'll just squeeze it. You'll be like, we got 2 hours. We got to get B-roll of Philadelphia. It's on our list. And it drives me insane because it's like, that's an important part of this story. I mean, how do you, what's your approach to B-roll from like talking to the director and then like trying to schedule it or whatever, often out of our control, but how do you handle it?
Yeah. I mean, I try to, because it's going to be an ask. And so I try to figure out as we're going through the schedule of the trip, or of the shoot, when can we preserve some time to do that? And without knowing anything about what kind of B-roll we need, travel time, locations, I would love to protect a morning and an evening,
right,
and get the right light, because inevitably you're always shooting it on your way to lunch,
right,
in the worst light.
Yeah.
So that's point one, is just trying to protect pockets of time, and then figure out what you're going to do with it later.
Right.
But the other thing is at the beginning, and I think that a lot of directors or producers don't think about the importance of B-roll and the same kind of creative conversations as you do everything else. Because like you were saying, it's like, we need B-roll of a city. It's like, okay, for what purpose? Right. Is it just, and then it's always going to change in the edit. So like you have to, think about that too. But it's like, is this just an establisher where you want a drone of the city to say that we're in this place, and then we cut in and we're there? But then even with that, is it cutting into a morning scene, an afternoon scene, a night scene? Like, am I shooting the same shot 3 different times so you can play it a certain way in the edit? That's a question that changes everything. But then it's like, am I going to do this kind of low, obscured, kind of voyeuristic? Am I going to do it clean? Am I going to do it front lit, back lit? Like all those things, all those decisions that you make about framing a shot, lighting a shot, moving to get the subjects in the right light, applies to B-roll too. You can't just like plop a camera down and shoot something.
Oh, you can.
You can, and that's ultimately what we do.
Right.
But it's the same shooting a vérité scene where you cover the scene and you're keeping a log in your head of, I need an insert of that picture because they referenced it. I need, I missed this moment, but I can get someone picking up the coffee mug. But when you're using those cutaways, which cutaways are different from B-roll, even though they're technically the same thing, a cutaway, you're giving a perspective to cut into that scene. I'm going to shoot that picking up the coffee mug from over this person's shoulder because it's going to cut in how I was. B-roll's the same thing. Like, how are we going to cut it in? What's the purpose? All those things. So I like to have those conversations either before we go on the trip, which doesn't happen most of the time, but it's like on my checklist of, let's talk about what kind of general scenics that we need. Right. Or at the very least, going back to like the assistant days, my favorite part of everything was the whole crew would go out for dinner at the end of every night. Right. And as an assistant, you were part of that conversation of what did we get? How did it go? Right. Well, now those dinners are becoming less and less in general. Everybody kind of branches out and has emails to respond to, so they all go back to their room. But like, that's another time of saying, here's what we got. Now that the story's starting to evolve, what kind of B-roll would make sense? Like now I could really see, after what happened today, a great shot of, someone sitting on a park bench alone with the river behind them. Right. That's not just a shot that you just would find. You have to go find it and go get it. So being able to consolidate your thoughts at the end of every shooting day to refine what your shot list is, either as a scene or as inserts, B-roll, drone, whatever it is.
Yeah. Do you ever, like, I've thought about, and I don't often do it, but before traveling to a city, will you research the spots people have done because I'll do a little bit of a Google Maps. So much. I have pins depending on the project. All over the place, all over the country. Interesting. It's like, oh, this hilltop looks really great. Yeah. Like, let's go there and pull out Sunseeker to see, like, okay, like, what's a really good time to try to get that. But then, of course, it again goes back to that schedule of like, oh, the places that look really cool that everybody goes to is like a 45-minute drive out of town. Right. And shooting at midday, it's really not worth the drive round trip, and it's not worth the light. So like, but you have a plan. That's the thing the thing with B-roll especially, but this could be said about documentary in general, I think, is like better to have a plan going in than just a vague, we gotta capture this. Like that's my thing is like, we don't need to go through a list and get exactly these 5 things for B-roll, but if we have those 5 things, at the very least, we can go get those, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if in the process of doing that, we see something else, we can still be like, leave room for spontaneity. And, but if my pet peeve is when they're just like, I don't know, on the way between this location and that location, if you see something you really like, we'll stop. And it's always like, well, what do you mean we'll stop? Like, so are we on radio? And then every time I think I see something I might like, we're like pulling over, and then I get out and be like, actually, it's fine. Get back in the car, And I've done a lot. I mean, a lot of many minutes of production time have been wasted that way. I feel like it's like, no, if we pass something we like, note it, put it on the list, and then like at the right time of day, let's go back and get it.
That's everything. Is you have the plan that you'll never stick to.
Right.
It's always going to change.
Right.
But the point of making a plan is that there's a motivation behind those things when you actually have time to think about it.
Right.
Once you're in the field, you don't have time to think about much.
Right.
So it just becomes your script and your blueprint that you can then adapt to.
Right. Which is actually, this leads us pretty well into the idea of scouting and locations. I don't know about you. I very rarely, every once in a while, I get a project where they're very meticulous about scouting, and it makes me really happy because for me, location is like at least half the job for cinematography. Getting a great location, especially for like interviews and things like that, like a place that doesn't have all white walls, it's like half the job. When they throw you in these like a terrible small space, it's like, I'm going to do the best anyone can do in this space, but it's good. The limitation won't be my skill here,
Right.
How often do you get to scout a location? What does it look like for you on most of these projects?
I would say it's actually getting better. It used to be you never got to scout much. I think it's also hard to say is that, when you're doing a pure vérité film, you're not scouting anything because you're only going to be in that place. You don't get to choose where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
Certainly it's nice to be able to go in and figure out what kind of gear you need, but also with a vérité film, if you're doing the same places a lot, you will be back and you can augment further down the road. But yeah, all of it just goes to like scout's great because it just gives you more information. We may not be able to change anything about it, but at least I have an idea of what I'm walking into. But I think what's funny to me is that most people want to do a scout so that I can figure out how I'm going to light it, which I'm like, I'm not going to light it. This is a doc. Like I want to go in.
It's nice to know if you need to light it. Like you might walk into a situation where you're like, yeah.
Which is honestly few and far between.
Yeah,
like
I
you
agree.
You can turn some lights on and off or off and close some windows and orient which way you're going to look and they're lit.
Right.
But I like to just think about it of like more of are we planning on shooting in the entire house? So if we have a crew and we have gear, where are we going to put them?
Right.
If we're going to roll up cars, I can see the road or the driveway out of the living room window. So let's put them somewhere else. It's like, it's more those logistics for me that's important in a scout, and honestly less so than like my job of how am I going to light it? Because I'm generally not going to, because as soon as you start setting up lights, you've now restricted the movement of everything else. So I would rather just find it.
Yeah. You have to tell everyone where to be. Like that's the whole thing with vérité. You can't block light shoot in vérité. Like that defeats the whole purpose. You're following them. You're literally like, I can't tell you how I'm going to light this because I don't know where that person's going to sit. I don't know where this, I've had that conversation a lot with some directors as well. That's often like, well, can we light it so that everything, and it's like, well, yeah, they're done. or
the window's right there.
or like you said, often, almost all the time, it's just turning off lights or like maybe throwing something on a window or every once, like if it's a lot of fluorescence or low hanging, that's the big thing for me is like the really spotty top, whatever, what are those called? The,
those like the cans.
Yeah, those cans. Like it's like, oh great, we can go in ahead of time and just quickly tape up some diffusion over those or something. Like just, it's like problem
Little
solving.
Things.
Yeah, exactly. It's not,
right.
I agree 100%. Yeah. Because once you set up one light, you got to light the whole thing. You can't.
Everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where the logistics are important, because for me, I'm most likely not going to light it. So I need to, and we're going to be hopefully wanting to, allowing them to move through their house freely.
Right.
So for me, it's not about which way is the sun coming, because we're not adjusting our schedule to make that work. It's more of where can I hide everyone?
Right.
Because I don't want any of you here. As much as we were talking about crew, like when the camera goes, I don't want anybody in the room. I mean, I'll take sound.
Yeah. Sound will be in the room. The right sound mixer.
If I get another docked sound mixer that shows up
with a cart.
Yeah. Or only lavs, I'm like, just pick up the boom and walk.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. Let me introduce you to Peter Miller. Yeah, the location. I mean, one of the things I do try to do, and this is different. It's like, it's interesting. Like vérité has come to mean so many different things now. And it's very rare you're actually shooting a vérité project. I hate to say it. Like when people say like, oh, it's all vérité. And then they're like, well, we're getting the location a half hour before them so we can get ready. And it's like, well, what? Like, okay. Like, and then it becomes, exactly what you're saying. Like, well, where do we want them to be? Oh, should there be a conversation around the dining room table? They're like, I don't know.
It's not vérité.
Is it going to be? Do you have a crystal ball? I don't know where they're going to sit. And then, and again, like, I've definitely, that sounds really snobby or whatever. And I've learned in those situations, if that's what the director wants, of course we can do. I will always propose we let them do their thing and we follow them. Like, it's always going to be better. It's always going to feel less, but we've become so trained with reality shows, like viewers and the people in the show, they feel like, oh, here's the scene. Everyone sits in the couch and like sits and they talk to each other. And that's normal. And it's like, well, that's not normal. Like, that's not, why is that normal? You walk into the house, you just sit in a couch for 2 hours, and I don't know.
Well, I think it's hard. Like, I think early in the beginning, our brains were trained a certain way of what vérité was. And when that becomes the foundation, it becomes very difficult, at least for me, to deviate from that. Like I never let it show, but whenever somebody sits in or comes in and says, well, so where should they sit? Do you want them sitting here or there? I'm like, I don't care.
Right.
I will find the shot that makes sense based on them doing what they're doing and being comfortable.
Right.
And it's the same as when it comes to lighting. Like, we never lit anything before, and now we have to do it less than we had to before because the cameras are so sensitive and the range is there. Right. But it's, I was trained to be purely reactionary, and that's where I'm comfortable. But when I have all the time in the world to like build something from scratch, I don't even know where to start. Right. Because it's like, I don't know, that's where I want to see the blocking first. Like, where are they going to land? I don't care. And then we'll make it happen. Right. But I think that whole mentality, and that's a slight deviation, but just, I think that just let people do what they're going to do, and it'll make everything better. Yeah. I always say in that situation where they're like, well, where do you want to sit? Where do you want them to sit? And they're already like in holding somewhere. So it's like, we've already given up on the idea that we're just following them into the situation. But I'm the same as you. I'm always like, let's see where they sit and let's let it play out. If they end up sitting in a place that has some overwhelming technical, they're very dark skinned and they sat in front of this blast out window, maybe we'll say, oh, you know what? Why don't you just go over there? Like, maybe just move over a little bit. But in the end, the more we start talking to them and telling them what to do, the more aware they are of the cameras, and and then they start performing. And generally, these people are not actors. Like, it's not, and it's going to feel it feels so bogus. Like even just little things like where they sit starts to feel like not right. But that's again too, where I think that part of, because there's no such thing as pure observational filmmaking. Like, we're in the room and we're changing the situation, but that relationship that you have with the subjects is important, that we have with them. Right. Not the director certainly is important, but oftentimes they're not in the room while things are happening. Right. But that's where if you have the relationship and you just let them sit where they want, I don't know how many times it's been like they're comfortable and they already know that I'm in the room, that I might come up and say, would you mind just, like, when it makes sense, would you mind if you come back, go sit in that chair instead? Right. And then they'll do it. And then it's like, it never disrupted anything. Right. They just took a note and did it. But it's when somebody come barging through the room and it's like, wait, this doesn't, let me see what happens when you move over here. And now it's like, okay, now we're directing actors and the whole thing is off. Just be subtle about it.
Yeah. And then the next thing that happens, because I'm sure you've seen this happen, the next place we're filming with them at a cafe somewhere, and they look over at me like, where should I sit? Like in the middle of a scene, which actually was going really well, is vérité, I'm following, this is great, everything's going great. And they turn and look at me as like, where do I go now? And it's like, oh, damn, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah, there's no end to a scene anymore.
Yeah.
Then they'll just like say, and they're like, did you get what you need?
We talked about booking etiquette, which I'm always fascinated by because I have my own way of talking to production when they call me, and it's so clumsy. And then like my own system on my calendar, like it involves like a series of question marks after the person's name on my calendar. Like I'm working with Matt Porwoll, question mark, question mark. Oh, 3 question marks means it's probably not happening, but he's down to 2 question marks. But I know there's like
dot.
Yeah, exactly. There's like an official way of doing that. Like people talk about, every once in a while I get a job where they'll be like, this is a soft hold right now. So if you get another call us, and then that gives us the opportunity to challenge it, And I'm always like, ooh, this is so official. Like, I don't know. Is that, in your experience, do you have a lot of that conversation, or do you present that to them? Like when they first say, oh, hold these dates for me. Like, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, but you said that there's a system, and so I've been told. I've never really actually seen how that system works. But yeah, I mean, first off, you will be wide open for a month, and then you'll get 5 phone calls for the exact same day.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so therein lies the problem of what do I say to all of them?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't feel like I ever use the terms, or even really productions at this point for me use the terms of soft hold, first challenge, that kind of stuff. But it always is a very open-ended conversation where they'll call, and I'll be honest with them most of the time of, are you available this day? And I said, I could be, I think so.
Right.
I've been asked, about something else, but 9 times out of 10, nobody's actually asking you to hold a day.
Right.
They're like, we're thinking about what's your window look like next week.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I now have 3 windows of time that people are trying to fit. So either the 3 of you get on a conference call and figure it out, or I'm going to have to start turning some stuff down, or just making a decision of what am I willing to let go if it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. But I also try to, if you're honest with production, 9 times out of 10, they'll understand because they have multiple people on hold who are challenging them too.
Right.
And so it's, I might have something else that is coming up, or let me check back with the other production and see where they're standing, and I'll get back to you. I will pencil you in so I know that this is a possibility, and then I will call you back. If I haven't, check back in with me. So it's just trying to keep an open dialogue and less about like the second you get another call. I'm like, at the end of the day, if you haven't confirmed me where you will pay a cancellation if it goes away, then everything is open.
Right.
And I've talked to a lot of people who, it sounds so crass, but they're just like, I'll put everything as a hold, but until they confirm, like I will drop it last minute if somebody else calls and is able to take it, whether they have like first right of cancellation or not. It's like, if you're not going to book me, what are we going to do? So I don't want to go that far.
It's tough in documentary, especially, right? I mean,
well, and it's
you're dealing with real people's lives. Things get canceled at the last minute. You never can
100%.
know.
No. And I fully respect that because everybody is very open about why the window is as wide as it is and what they're trying to do. But that's, again, one of those things of when someone calls and say, what does the next 3 months look like for you? And I'm like, solid question. But like, why do you ask in such a way? Like, give me a sense of what you're trying to get to.
Right.
Goes back to everything else we talked about. But then the decision of holding that window open is, am I on this film for the duration?
Right.
Is this a film that I like doing?
Right.
If it's someone with a new production company I've never worked with and say, are you available this week? And I have a couple holds on the film that I'm shooting this week, then I'm going to say, no, I'm not available. Right. Even if I am, because it might mess that up. And so it's like, what are you willing to let go of versus hold on to that might down the line go away? It's just a
It's so hard.
balancing act, but it's such a pain.
Yeah.
Because nothing ever lines up.
No, it is exactly. I mean, the last few months have been exactly that for me. It's been almost insane. Like, it'll be like nothing, nothing, nothing. Then one day, every person I've ever worked with in my life calls me. And it is never, I mean, it's always, the first call is always this person you've never worked with before. And the job's like, oh, okay, I'll do this job. And I got nothing else going on. And then after that is the job you really want to do. And then you're in this tough position. Like, well, I did tell these people I'm available. That's where, I mean, and it's also hard. I think it's harder as directors of photography, frankly, than most other crew, because I think in most other crew positions, it's a lot easier just to say like, look, this other thing came up. It's my long-term job that I've been working on, which for me is always the first priority. If there's a production that's committed to me to say like, well, you're the DP on this project, and we're not just hiring random DPs every shoot, then those people are going to get the because obviously they're taking care of me, and I'm invested in this thing. I want to make sure. But it's so hard, especially once you get closer to the shoot day, to tell somebody like, it turns out I'm not going to be available. Whereas I think if you're a sound mixer or you're camera assistant or any other role, it's kind of like, oh shit, I was really looking forward to working with you, but that's cool. Oh, you hired so-and-so, they're going to do great. But this is not like, this is like, we're hiring you and your personal, aesthetic, and there's judgment that we know you're going to be great on. And there aren't, not to say like, oh, you're better or worse than these people. Sometimes that's the case, but it's also just like, we've decided your look is the look we're doing.
Of how the film is coming together.
Right. And we've had all these conversations probably. And so now do we have to have all these conversations again with the next DP who might be just as talented or whatever, but we've just invested so much time. I always have a hard time knowing when it's okay to replace myself. But then the other part, the key to that for me, I feel like, is having a list of people that I can call who I know, like if I call Matt Porwoll, if you're available by some miracle and willing to work for the terrible rate I work for, give him a try. And then I'll know like, okay, I'm not leaving these people in a lurch, I mean, I love recommending people whenever possible, because you get the bonus of also that person now, like, I did a favor for that person. I got that person a job. That's going to come back to me somehow, like whatever, like good. And it's also just good for our community of people, like, this rising tide type of idea. So, I mean, I try to do that, but it is often it's hard to convince people, even if people have like great resumes and all that. They're like, yeah, but you're doing the job. Do they know? And it's hard because you also don't want to like demean your job at all. You don't want to be like, yeah, they can do it.
I'm never replaceable, but in this moment, I'm actually very replaceable.
Right. It's always that conversation. He is the second best cinematographer that I know. Like, he won't do as well as I do, but he might do well. And then I have to call you and be like, listen, man, don't do a really good job. Like, I want you to do one thing that just leaves a little bit of a bad taste in their mouth. That's all I ask. Just
right. Don't steal this from me.
Yeah, one shot, just a little soft. That's all I ask.
I think that goes back to like, if it's a new production that you've never worked with, a new director, a new producer, like I don't know how. Sometimes people just throw stuff to the wall and see what sticks. It's like, oh, I'm going to book you for this shoot. We don't even know if that person's going to be in the film yet.
Right.
I'm like, well, that's not really a way to book people.
Right.
Like you should incur some expense to like guide you into making better decisions. Right. But if it's a film that I'm working on and I understand that we're waiting for the birth of someone's child, it's not going to come. Right. Well, it didn't happen. You booked me for today. It's like, you have to pay me. It's like, no, I get it. Like it's loose. People
induce all the time. For worse reasons than a film production.
I am on a schedule, people.
Yeah.
But, I think, I mean, what do you do? Do you ever like go through the quote unquote proper method of like, okay, you're on a hold and then I will call you to challenge, but then that never goes the way that they're like, well, we still don't know yet. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's exactly.
What do you do?
Yeah. That's what I do. Like I endlessly call people. They get sick of hearing from me because what usually ends up happening is there's a job I really want to do, and they said we think it's going to be these dates, but stand by. And then another job comes that I don't want to do as much, and they're like, "Oh, we're shooting on this day," and I have to constantly harass that first project. Like, listen, I want to do your job, but these people can commit to that day. And then you're in a tough position because you're basically holding these people hostage. You're saying, well, so usually what happens is I find you can at least get someone to eliminate a day as a possibility. Like, they really want to shoot Friday. I know you wanted to shoot that week. Can we at least say we're not going to shoot this on Friday? And then but I very rarely do I get the very official. I think that's something that happens in narrative because they can plan, they have to plan so far ahead. So it's like soft hold, blah, 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 because it's like they have a schedule when they can do all these things. And they know when they book you that unless something goes drastically wrong and probably involves like an insurance claim, they're going to be able to, work with you. So yeah. So in our world, you just have to be cognizant of the fact that the people usually aren't in control of these schedules. They have all these variables of things. And I don't have a good answer. I was hoping you did.
No,
but like I said,
it's just,
yeah,
it ultimately comes down to which one are you willing to put more risk into?
Right. And I will occasionally.
If this project is worth it to me. And I mean, also so many times I just get a feeling from the producer of like, you're kind of just dragging me along until you figure out what's happening.
Right.
And that doesn't make me feel great, where somebody else is like, you are literally waiting for the world to get back to you about what is happening.
Right.
Fine.
And they're keeping you up to date
go
constantly.
on that ride with you.
Yeah. That's right. There's some people who won't even call you. Like, that's the worst thing is like you have a sort of soft hold and the date comes closer and closer. They're not getting back to you. And then finally they write back the day before. Oh yeah, that thing went away. It's like, well,
I know. I just got a call not that long ago of we have a development shoot that's coming up and it's like really short notice. It's going to be, this was like Wednesday and we're shooting on Saturday or Sunday.
Right.
And I was like, okay, no, I can do it. They're like, okay, we'll get back to you with details. And that was the next question of like, what's the project about?
Right.
Who's directing this? Like, what gear do you need just so I can start wrapping my head around it? And they're like, we have a production call about it this afternoon. I'll get back to you. Don't hear anything. I'm like, so the shoot's on Saturday. So it's like Thursday night. I call and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. I never got back to you. Yeah, it went away. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Right.
You called me about the urgency of how soon this is. And like, did you not factor in the fact that I might want to make plans this weekend?
That's very typical. And meanwhile, and you're planning and you've not only, I was making plans. I'm not able to just go to bed at night with like, oh, we'll just think about that tomorrow. Cause I don't know that I'm already in my head planning out like with the, whatever little bit of information they've sent me. They're like, okay, oh, it's a true crime thing. Okay. All right, well, we're probably going to need something. I'm already thinking about crew we should call, or, so they've had you running your gears. They don't even know.
Some people pack for vacation, like 10 days before the flight.
Yeah.
I pack 3 hours before.
Yeah.
But I pack my gear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
2.5 weeks before.
As quick as, exactly. Yeah. Right. So I think that's the thing. What I was going to say about the booking thing, I think what I try to do, I always, first of all, when they say, are you available? I say, I may be, I have to check like 100% of the time. And I'm sorry, like, I don't think I'm being dishonest. I do have to check. But even if I see it a square open, I never say I'm absolutely available, except for there's certain clients. Absolutely. I'm like, I will do it no matter what. But I also have to check with my wife and everybody else, like there's a million things I might've forgotten about. But also what I try to do is say like, like that week I'm pretty open, but I am working on one or two long-term things that have expressed interest in that week. And I try to be really honest about like, and it's hard too, because you don't want to like make them feel like their job is lesser than those other jobs, But yeah, that's, I don't know. I don't think there is a good, I think it is like, it's kind of what makes our industry interesting and fun is the sort of human, it always is going to be human and not like, scheduled really hard and like, but it's the downside to it is you just have to be honest with people and like,
Well, and it's funny because I will also put this out there that the vast majority of producers, production companies, directors that I've worked with, they all get it. Like they're not, if this is a conversation that they're having with themselves, trying to figure out their own lives and schedule a shoot, talking with the subjects, trying to book local crew who are just day players. Like we all understand the situation. And so when they call and say, they're not going to look bad at you if you say, I might be available, but I need to check. Like everybody gets it. And, and oftentimes if you're on a project long term, if they're able to work around your schedule, they try to do that. Like,
Right.
nobody's out to screw you. It's just stuff gets canceled last minute and randomly all the time for various reasons.
Right.
But I think we've gotten, like, it's frustrating for us still, but I think we've also gotten used to, this is just the way that life works. Like, what do you mean somebody knows that they can book a vacation 6 months in advance? Like,
Right.
I don't know what's going to happen in 6 months.
Yeah. Forget it. Yeah.
But, for the rest of the world, it's kind of insane.
Yeah.
Like, trying to schedule visits with parents and family. They're like, what do you mean you have to
Right.
change the date a week out? I'm like, well, I got a job. They're like, how do you live your life like that? And I'm like, I don't know, I've been doing it for a while.
It's kind of great,
normal.
actually.
It is kind of great.
So kill fees in the end for you, I know there's no hard and fast rule for it, but they're the one, I think for me, 24 hours is like the rule. Like, I will insist on a kill fee for me and the crew, 24 hours. And sometimes it can be a little bit, depending on the project, if it's really low budget, like it has to be something, I don't know, but there's no hard and fast rule. And usually the rule is the day, like what you were going to pay me tomorrow, you have to pay me now. I'm sorry. Like, I can't work on anything else. I can't book something that quickly, because I don't often have that conversation, and really probably should have that conversation more often, because once it comes up, you find out we had two very different ideas of what the proper thing to do is. And you never want to be like, in the end, it's stupid. I mean, it's one of those like short-term gain things to really insist on a kill fee, when if they start getting really pissed off. I don't know how you feel about it, but I feel like if it's the next day, I'm getting a kill fee. Like, I'm like, sorry, you guys, you had me booked, and I'm sorry, whatever happened that it got canceled. But if it's like a week out or something, we put all this work into it and the project goes away, and I feel like, it was like a week or two of work, and I really feel like it's very hard to have that conversation gingerly in a way, because you don't want to throw away all the future work this person could give you just because you got really stingy about, like, oh, no, you got to pay for that whole week for me, But then also you don't want to have this conversation constantly ahead of time, because that starts raising red flags to production. Like, all this guy talks about is getting kill fees if this thing goes away,
Yeah, because I've done this long enough to see how many times you cancel a shoot.
Yeah, exactly. But there's that idea of, like, if somebody challenges, right? Like, I was a hold, somebody called me for that day, it might be a week from now. Do you ever say to that person, to the project that was holding you the first, okay, I'm going to take this other job unless you could commit to this job, and if it cancels, you pay me a kill fee? You never. No. I know. I don't think I ever have that conversation either.
I think, and it's like, again, I think that's a much easier conversation to have in the narrative scripted world,
right,
of a schedule.
Right.
But like, it never, like, to me, that sounds really odd. Of like, okay, well, some other random, not fully ready to go project has also asked about those days. So now I'm going to push back. I think I just like to have conversations with people.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, generally it's just the number of times I do have to push back on productions to say, you've been asking about this for a while. You still don't have an answer. Like, I really want to do your project, and I have other requests for that time frame, and I really need to get back to them one way or the other. Right. Like, that's how I challenge.
Yeah.
Is just, if you can't make a decision soon, I'm going to have to go with one of the other ones, but I really want to do this with you.
Right.
And then if they respond like, we still just don't know, then it's up to me to, am I willing to risk
to make a call?
Hope,
right.
Or take the money and run. I mean, it
is true. It becomes very transactional to say, like, well, they're challenging, so if now there'll be a kill fee. It does feel very, and that is sort of what we like about the industry, but also it's not meant to be that transactional. It's kind of like, we're figuring it out.
Right. And I mean, this is also a business, whether it's transactional to that degree or not. Like, people don't take it personal. They understand. Right. We all need to make a living. So it's, they're like, oh, I really wish you didn't have to do that because
Right.
we might know in the next 12 hours, but we might not. So I get it. So do what you got to do, and they're fine with it, and they'll still call you again.
I feel like 9 times out of 10, I make that call. Like I say, I'm going to take this, and then the other job cancels, and then the other job, the original job, booked somebody else, and it happened. It's like, God damn it.
Right. It's insanity because we keep repeating the same.
Yeah. There's no way.
Next time I'll choose the first one.
Yeah. And then next, it's like, what's it called? 3-card Monty. Like which job, which one has the actual date in it? Anyway, then the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, unless there's other stuff, is the primes versus zooms. And I know you said it's a short conversation, but I know it's a conversation that like I've gotten, it used to be a bigger thing, that conversation, I feel like, especially in vérité, where they're like, we want to shoot this on primes. I'm like, well, that's a decision, and we have to talk about how we can do that properly. In the beginning, when really good, inexpensive primes, I guess it's when we first started shooting in larger format, that because there were always were primes, obviously, but but it became an option for us, to shoot a vérité scene on primes. The first few times I did it, I was like, man, you cannot do this. Like you cannot cover a scene this way. I'm like changing lenses, and like I'm getting half the coverage I normally would get. And then we started shooting. Then for We're Here really started. The look we decided on was we're shooting on primes. And I figured out and what I realized is it's really just a mentality of what you how you interact with the lens and how you interact with the scene, and like whether the decisions you make are just different decisions, and it becomes much more cinematic in a lot of ways. Like I'll find myself in shooting entire scenes on a 50mm lens and be like, I'm glad if I had the ability to zoom, it really would have messed this up. But then there's other projects that I'll be like, I couldn't have shot this scene without a zoom. Like if you don't have an AC to help you change the lenses. For me, I think the biggest thing is like, for We're Here, we had a great system where we had really good ACs who were just standing by. I would radio to them like, I'm going to go to a 35. And then I would turn, and that's where the EF mount on Canon really works great. Is I would just turn, I'd push the button on the release.
Pop it.
They would put it back in, and they, and if they're really on the ball, they'd note the stop, and they'd have the stop in already. And I would just go, and it's like, it's almost as though I zoomed, But I don't know, what's your thought process when people talk to you? It's very early on, like someone just called you for a project, you've never worked with them before, and they're like, we'd really like to shoot this on primes. Like what goes through your head?
It almost feels like the same conversation of not having a sound recordist, of certainly doable. I mean, to me, there needs to, I shouldn't say be a reason. I need to know what the environment is to know if it's going to work or not. But the biggest one is, as long as we're all fully on board to the things that we're not going to get, then I love the idea.
Right.
But I need to know that the director's not just going to say, oh yeah, no, I'm fine if we miss some moments because I understand I just really want it to look good. But there's always something in the back of my head of like, but are you though?
Right.
Like, are you really, you're going to come to me and say, why did you miss that? Like every other vérité film.
When you're sitting in the edit, like what's the editor and the director? Are they complaining that you didn't get this shot? Because it was, totally that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
But but you can tell in the conversations with the director of like, oh no, they're really after something here. And it's about the bigger approach, and we're fine missing the little moments that you would use a zoom to capture. Because it's, in some ways, it's the zoom is like having a second camera. It's like if I say I want to shoot this on a single camera, then, allow me the ability to miss some things to be able to get kind of more purposeful approaches or, framings. Primes and zooms are the same thing. I just have found that every time that I try to do it, part of it is my brain is so used to doing it with zooms. But part of it is I haven't really found a ton of environments where the prime gives you that much flexibility to really be able to move with your subjects. I would say that, if it's a film about like a singular character, it's great because then it's really giving you a point of view and a viewport to be able to see their story. If you're following like a bunch of people in a room, becomes a lot harder because it's like I need to just punch through to be able to see people. So, I've certainly done projects on primes, and it's been great. But I still will kind of always default to a zoom unless there's a real push and reason to do it otherwise.
Right. That makes sense, especially if you're insisting on single camera, which I agree with you 100%. Like I am anytime a vérité scene, if we could do it single camera, that's the way to do it. And it really does have to be a zoom, unless it's something. My exception for that is like if I'm filming someone like painting a picture on a canvas, I could shoot that on primes because it's like, repetitive. They're going somewhere. They're doing this thing. I can step back, get this beautiful wide. I can get the really intense close-ups and all that. But as soon as you introduce like another person into the scene and I'm single camera, suddenly it becomes, we got to whip out you need a 2-shot. You also need a single. You want to give them a variety enough. It's almost like, I also feel like I want to talk to the editor, and this is another one. Note this one down. That's another one we can talk about.
We were saying that we should have producer credits. We should also have editing credits.
I know. Yeah. Oh, that would be kind of an amazing poll if you were. Well, technically,
pre-edited by.
I am editing by not shooting that. Yeah. Every time I turn off the camera, I'm editing. At the very least, assisted editing.
I'm giving you what I'm giving you.
Yeah,
You're only working with the source material.
That's right.
Working with the moment.
I did the first pass in the field, baby.
Yeah, rough cut editor.
Yeah, but I almost feel like shooting. It's the same thing with single camera. And with primes, these type of things, it's like I almost want to have a conversation with the editor to be sure they know and have done this before. Because if you're working with an editor that does reality shows or does, then they're used to just getting like every moment is on camera. We got that. Oh, it's just a matter of we do a paper edit of the dialogue and because we know you have all the shots and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, but if you work with an editor who has done work in like real vérité filmmaking, that's been single camera and things like that, they know you look at the footage and you build the scene around that. I mean, I don't want to pretend like I know. I'm not a very good editor, as will become very clear in this project. But I do believe I've seen the work of really great documentary editors, and I feel like there's a difference in their process, and it's just less. And frankly, it's probably the amount of time they have to do it too. I mean, it's probably not fair to I know, having shot on some of these reality shows, I know the schedules they work on, and it's all well and good to be like, can't you be more creative about how you build a scene? And they're just like, go fuck yourself.
20 minutes to do this.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's the equivalent of them coming and being like, why didn't you get more establishing shots of that house? It's like, because we had to go roll off to lunch because nobody wanted to pay meal penalties. Yeah. I do feel like that is something that's been on my list for a long time. Is like I've gotten to know a few great editors, and I feel like on jobs I never know if it's appropriate to ask who the editor is. It always seems like oh, now he's asking who the editor is, but I feel like it's important. Like this is the person it's like, I know. It's like your relationship with a doctor. They could totally reveal shit you didn't want. Like are you going to include those moments where I did a little move, because some editors are like, it gives it energy. I know. Yeah, that's another. We'll save those thoughts. We'll do an editor conversation at some point.
It is funny that they never tell you. I mean, like,
often they don't know.
I was just in a color session.
Yeah.
And is when I finally met the editor, but no one ever even said what his name was. I was like,
whoa,
wait, who are you, making suggestions to things? And like, oh, you cut the film. Like, nice to meet you.
Right.
Right. But then the times when you actually know the editor and they can call you and be like, it'd be really great.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where like vérité stuff when you're going back, but it's like, I would love to go to an editor and say, what are you missing? What can I give you?
Right.
To round this out. That goes back to the B-roll stuff of like, is there something now that you've gotten into the cut that there's an intention that you would like where we can just replace that shot that's kind of generic, like with something else? Do you want that at night? Do you want all those things, Like,
right.
Give me more close-ups because I'm feeling like everything is
been
super wide. Like, I'm open to that stuff because we all want a good story.
Or sometimes it'll be like, hey, you keep doing that shot, that weird. I don't use those. You know, like I would love
great,
to
I'll
get
stop
that note.
wasting my time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I really liked him, but if you're not going to put him in the show, I don't want to do him. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that would be amazing to have that kind of, and I think that's supposed to be sort of the role of the director, to be that bridge, right? Like the director, but it's becoming more and more rare. I don't know if you experience this, but I experience it. To be working with a director that's going to be in the edit is rare now. Like I'll be working with someone who's like, I don't know, I'm just giving this over. That's where that's a very broad auteur theory.
That's a problem.
Yeah, exactly. But it is the lack of an auteur, to sound really snooty about it. That's a problem in documentary filmmaking right now. I feel like they just have mechanized it to the degree. I think there's some people who are doing it, even in the reality space. There are people who have said like, no, this one director is going to carry it through. And you see the difference. Like that's one person's vision of a project, as opposed to like, we shoot everything in the field the way we know you expect to see it. We're not going to take any risks because, you know, because if you take a risk, you need to have someone who will follow through with that risk in the edit and say, totally. No, I agreed to do that. And then you get like the most bland, vanilla, boring stuff ever.
I mean, that fits for so many things even like with color, you know, it's like there's certain decisions that if I know that I can go to the color grade,
right,
then I will purposefully overexpose something to be able to pull it back later. But if I'm never going to be invited in and like the editor is going to color it, then I'm just going to play it safe. But it's not going to be as good or have the ability to be expanded out to something. You know, like if you have that follow through of a project, then it's better.
That's where finding like the right director, that first phone call can be very important. Like, are you going to be a person who, am I going to at some point talk to somebody who can say, yes, let's do that risky thing? Like when we're out in the field, like, you know, it'd be really cool to shoot this whole thing wide on a tripod and let it play out, you know? Like you have to have a director on board for that. Because if they deliver that to some boss, that person's going to get fired a lot of the time. Because they're going to be like, what do you mean you didn't get any coverage? You know, but sometimes that's what makes the difference between, you know, an amazing project that's something that people talk about versus, you know, anyway.
Yeah. Well, I always wonder who in Conclave, who should get fired to not shoot any B-roll if they never left the...
That was, I got to tell you.
They just forget to shoot the outside?
They hired me for that. I had a little problem with downloading that day.
Like, you know what, we'll just change it and then we're never going to leave.
Yeah, I haven't watched Conclave. Is that a thing? They don't do any B-roll because they don't shoot it in the Vatican? Was that the deal? Or I don't know.
It's only contained within the Vatican. So you never like all the cheers.
That's the premise. That's the premise.
The crowd waiting outside about the smoke signals. Like you only hear them, you never see them.
That's the perfect example.
It's great.
How great is that? That like totally, but how many people would actually, if you have more than one person, I feel like you need to have one strong-willed person at the helm for that. And to say like,
otherwise you're like, just throw a drone shot in of Rome. Right.
And then you've ruined the whole thing. The whole thing is done. Once you do one cutaway. Yeah. That's true. All right. That was a great conversation. Thank you so much. And I know you gave me so much more than you said you would. Sorry.
It's all good. The only thing is now Sarah keeps looking at me because I've completely taken over the living room.
Oh, no.
So now I want to let her be able to pass through.
Yes. And you have to call your grandma.
But otherwise, I got to call grandma back.
Yeah. We got to hang out sometime soon. For real.
We got it. Yeah. Let's make it happen.
Awesome.
All right. Well, this was great. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks again. All right. Take it easy.
All right. See ya.
Bye. Okay, it seems to have worked. Do a little tail slate for me.